Why do you always save me? Because I love you, Emilia, and I want to be your strength. Dude, this final scene, the emotions, the dialogue, the execution, it was too real. It was powerful. It overwhelmed my heart and caused it to overflow with feels and emotion. I couldn't take it. It was beautiful. The dynamic and the confession from Subaru, the bond deepening between him and my goddess EMD, dude. Emilia was pure love in this episode. ReZero episode 25, the finale, dude. I cannot believe that the journey with this series has come to an end, or at least the first part of this journey, shall I say. And bear with me, this is going to be a long-winded review. I probably would say it's going to be the longest ReZero review I've made, period. At the very least, rivaling the length of the episode 18 review. And a lot of the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts that I had, that were evoked after that episode are mirrored here in a different way. Seeing the incredible development of Subaru and Rem in that episode, the dialogue, which was pure love from Goddess Rem, dude. Seeing that in another light, the parallels being real with my other goddess of this series, Emilia. Neither of them have really surpassed the other, but at the end of the day, this scene impacted me in a very different way than the scene with Rem and Subaru, dude, and the love I felt. How happy and overjoyed I was to see that. And we're gonna go through the dialogue in depth because there's so much there that I absolutely adored. But it wasn't what I was expecting. The episode was powerful. It was an incredible way to end the season, and no season 2 announcement. I was holding my breath for that. It didn't happen. I have the utmost faith that in the future we will see a season 2 for ReZero. But I'm going to table that till the end of this video, as well as I will be talking about my future plans for ReZero on this channel. So if you want to hear about any of that, please stick around to the end of the review. And we're gonna dive into it, dude. But the very first thing, normally I wouldn't want to start with the dialogue of the final scene, but I feel as though I need to do that here with this review, and then we'll get into the episode at large, because there's a lot I want to talk about, from, stuff concerning Julius, Betelgeuse and his dialogue, that shot of Satala, dude. Yeah, I'm saying that right now. What did I say before? I knew they would use Rei Takahashi for the voice actress of Satala, dude. I imagined in my mind, it was my own headcanon, that when she said I love you back during the battle with Hokage, that it sounded exactly like Emilia. What do we see here? And the dialogue from her is very important as well, and it's going to fuel a lot of theory crafting that I'm going to be doing about ReZero in the future. But the first thing I really need to say about this episode was how impressed I am with the execution, and how taken aback and thrown off I was with this ending and how it subverted my expectations. Because from the very beginning of ReZero, since after my episode 1 review, people have been telling me that the end of Arc 3 is crazy. So I want to clarify something right now, because I know a lot of people have this kind of initially had this same kind of feeling as me as to, where is the savagery that we've heard so much about? This is not the ending of Arc 3, I've been told. I haven't been spoiled. Please, nobody spoil anything that transpires after this, in terms of the series progression, in the comments below. I'll be talking about why later, but I don't want to know right now. I really don't want to know right now, but this is not the ending that they talking about. Yes, this ending was in fact canon. They broke it down and left off on a point to where there's still more events. The closing parts of Arc 3 have yet to unfold, and we have yet to see that. I actually really love White Fox's decision to end it here. The staff, Tappei, probably signed off on this as well. And I think it was beautiful. I think it was impactful. It rounds out the entire series and showcases Subaru's growth and that bond with Emilia that was established since episode 1, and brings it to its fruition and leaves it on a happy, tone that I wasn't expecting. I was not expecting to have that happy tone by the end of this. I was expecting to be filled with despair and some crazy shit that shattered my heart to take place, and that's not what we got. So I know some people are going to complain, they'll be like, yo, this episode was meh, this was alright. Don't, just because it subverted your expectations, and just because it wasn't what you were expecting, or maybe you wanted a dark, twisted, ending in line with the general overarching progression of this series, I think ending it here was fine. as as opposed to kind of trying to force and cram in that cliffhanger ending that I've been anticipating, that a lot of people have said that we're gonna get, and just for the sake of having it, dude. I think this served its purpose as well, especially the execution of that final scene, man. So I respect this choice regardless. The animation throughout the episode went in, Yuli going in against Betelgeuse, that final scene and the art, the color palettes, the lens flare, just everything about the scenery looked so vibrant and beautiful, and it brought forth that atmosphere and emotion perfectly. So once again, I've said it many times, but I want to thank, the entirety of the cast and staff that worked on this project. Tappei Nagatsuki-sensei himself. The respect I have for you is insane at this point. You have truly become one of my favorite light novel and web novel authors of all time, and I can't wait to delve further into the series. But with that said, let's talk about the episode as a whole. Like I said, I want to start by delving into the dialogue between Subaru and Emilia in that final scene. The OTP shining brightly. The only other thing you guys know from me that rivals this pairing is Subaru and Rem. And when I talk about if I'll fanboy over that, but in terms of the canon, this was absolutely beautiful. I loved every minute of it, and the way the comedy was blended into it seamlessly, the execution, the flashbacks, and the way they worked to evoke such emotion and reminiscence of the scenes that have happened throughout our journey with this series. Then dropping Styx Helix there, dude, that's when I was done. That was incredible, because for those of you that know, Styx Helix is probably like one of my top 5 EDs of this year, period. But anyway, let's delve into it, starting off with the comedic moment of Subaru waking up after passing. And we're going to backtrack to everything that happened in the episode prior, outside of this final scene, after I'm done talking about it. So, when he wakes up and he's like, considering our distance and the heavenly sensation under my head, I'm just like, my boy, the return to the EMT lap pillow. As soon as he opened his eyes and I saw the look of that scene, I was just like, this is incredible. Amongst the flowers, the broken world tree in the background, everybody there who's made it through the battle. It was such a touching moment, dude. And I love how it's like, you don't have to say all of that. You don't have to say it like that. Is it comfortable? Is my lap comfortable? And he's like, I know of no finer, more divine pillow. I'm just like, my boy, let's go. The reunion throughout the episode as he came in to save them from the remaining, flame sharks, but we'll talk about that later. It was executed perfectly. That I love you the first time as he rode off on Petrarch, and after that, it was crazy. And I love as well how he asks immediately about Petrarch, one of the 3 MVPs in this episode, and I'll talk about that later. And he's like, "Yo, is Petrarch okay? What's going on there? I can't wait to become the wind with that little guy once again." And just in terms of Petrarch real quick, I want to ask, I've heard different things. Many people are like, Petrarch is a female, but then when they use kind of pronouns to describe Petrarch, it's always a masculine reference. So I'm wondering what's going on there. I've always seen Petrarch as a dude, but if it is a female, I want some clarification there. So I'm just gonna throw that in right there. But anyway, I love the preceding line where he's like, finally I made it back. I feel like I was having a very long dream, a terrible dream. No, it wasn't. And Emilia asks, was it a good dream? And he says, it's a good reality. That line for me, it just, the weight of it, summarizing everything we've been through on this journey, how far Subaru has come, everything that he's had to endure to make it to this point, and everything that we've had to experience week after week, and to see how much he's grown, and to see him finally tasting a bit of victory and happiness in his life right here in this moment. It was incredible, dude. So to hear him say those words was amazing. But the biggest thing that got me throughout this episode, as far as Emilia and Subaru, and in this dialogue especially, is Emilia's self-doubt and loathing, showcasing itself yet again. She never thinks of herself as worthy. She's always putting others above herself, and even though the prejudices and hatred of others that she's experienced her entire life bear down on her heart tremendously, she always tries to table that and bury it beneath the surface, thinking of less of herself, as if that's what she deserves, and playing up this idea that she's useless. And that couldn't be further from the case, dude. So it was so beautiful to have Subaru be able to get this through her head, through his dialogue, because it was so painful for me to listen to these bits of dialogue. For example, when she says, I haven't done anything like that. I've never been able to. You're the one who's always been saving me. I never could do anything for you. Similar to when she's talking to Puck earlier on in the episode when they're at the carriage, she's like, why would he do this for me? Like, after all the pain and suffering that he went through, after I made him look so sad, why? What does Subaru tell her? Because I love you. And it was crazy because at the same time, we saw this recognition from Subaru as he came to terms with everything up to episode 18. And I love the parallels between these episodes, like I stated before, but there's a lot of parallels to be taken out from this episode to prior episodes, episode 3, etc., etc. I could go on and on about it, but with that said, I love that he made that recognition there when he vowed to start again from zero, and he had recommitted his resolve, understood the error of his ways, and dispelled his general sense of self-hatred and self-loathing in that moment. And for him to actually say what he said to Rem about the situation, to Emilia to an extent, to showcase and verbalize those recognitions. He says, I was wrong, but there was only one thing that I was wrong about. He says, I used you for my own self-satisfaction. I was only thinking about myself, and I said it was all for you, when really, I was just drunk off of the idea of doing it for you. And he outright states this, and this kind of awakens Emilia's perspective, because when you think about the idea that she's always been like, I can't understand, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. It's not even a discrepancy between the knowledge Subaru had from the returns and what she knew in those present timelines, but it was that she genuinely, and this is something I stated in the past, again, I mean, it's twofold again, but still could not understand why Subaru was doing what he was doing for her and how he was positioning this dialogue. So this finally kind of gets it through to her and makes her understand as he acquiesces to this and says that he was wrong. And he says, but there was only one thing I was wrong about, that I wasn't wrong about. I want to save you. I want to help you. I honestly mean that. It's no lie. And when she acknowledges that she knows that now, my heart, if you watch the reaction, you'll see me just fanboying, and the emotions overwhelming me in the scene because it was so beautiful to witness this moment. It's something that I've wanted and that I feel like I've endured and persevered to see this entire time, and to get it here, it was amazing. I really felt as though, even though it was a tone to the episode and a happier ending than I expected to get with this episode, it was still beautiful to witness. Now, anyway, let's continue on, right? Going back into, Emilia's kind of self-doubt, self-loathing, and idea that she's inferior because that's what's been placed on her. When Subaru confesses, and again, I love that the shot in that scene where you see the reflection in both of their eyes, them seeing one another, and everything like that. The symbolism in that, going back to the various uses of that technique throughout the series and seeing things reflected in various people's eyes. And I love how that plays off of Will's line at the beginning of this episode where he says, you truly are master and servant. Your eyes look just like his. I feel like it's working on multiple levels to suggest that they're truly seeing each other at this moment, that they truly are connected. And it's one of the first shots where we see the reflection twofold in both individuals' eyes versus one or another, which I think, symbolically could have been used to showcase a divide, and that being surmounted with this connection that they're finally establishing in this scene. So I thought that was powerful and something interesting to know. But anyway, going back to Emilia's self-loathing, she says, I'm a half-elf. She says, I know that. I'm a silver-haired half-elf, and many people hate me because I look like the Just, which they despise me. They absolutely detest me. And I'm just like, damn, and Subaru's words here, I'm sorry. Like, going back, after I watched the episode a second time, like, even though I wasn't reacting, I think I had to clap to that shit because it was amazing. She's like, I saw that. Those guys are blind. I was just like, dude, preach, my boy, tell her. It should make her feel special, and that's something that we're going to talk about in a second. And these are the lines that got me to where I really started tearing up to hear how she truly feels and putting her heart and everything that she's thought about on the table in this moment, where she's like, I don't have much experience with people. So I don't have friends. I'm naive and not very worldly, so I say strange things sometimes. I'm just like, you're so much fucking love. You're absolutely adorable. And the reason I want to become the kingdom's ruler is really, really selfish. Dude. And then Subaru counters this by saying, no matter what anyone thinks of you. This is probably one of my favorite lines in the episode, I'm not gonna lie. No matter what you think of yourself, I love you. I really love you like crazy. I want to be with you all the time. And if you name 10 things that you hate about yourself, I'll say 2,000 things I love about you. Now, instantly when I thought about that a lot, and this is something I want to talk about later, going back to the episode 18, the beginning part of the dialogue, beginning part of the episode, where Puck says to Betelgeuse, if you're going to come at me, at least come at me with 2,000 hands, the amount that Sasula could make. I feel as though there's something going on here with this reference. I wonder what they could be implying here, furthering, the dynamic and links between Emilia and Sasula. I mean, a lot of things seem to already be going in line with my Emilia's secret theory, but I like hints like that. I wonder if there's a deeper symbolic meaning to the number of 2,000 and everything like that, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, she specifically asked about this. She's like, why 2,000? And he says, because 100-fold isn't enough to express how I feel about you. Absolutely amazing. And again, another one of my favorite lines of the episode. I know I'm spending a lot of time on this dialogue, but it's because it was so fucking emotional and powerful. How emotionally charged it was and how it affected me. I think the execution was beautiful amidst such a beautiful scenery and background. And, certain techniques, the color palettes, the animation, and the art, really, especially the shots of their final visages at the end of this episode, which is most likely thumbnail, I'm not even gonna lie. But anyway, he says, that's the type of special treatment that I want to give you. And she replies by saying, that's the first time I've received special treatment that made me happy. And if you think about the meaning of this scene overall, but going back to episode 13 and what she said there about how she never wanted to be treated, especially because that inherently was connoted by this distaste and hatred and abhorrence for her, to see that here, dude, I was just like, oh my god, it was beautiful. I'm sorry, I'm fanboying, but it was absolutely beautiful. I don't care what anybody says. You could disagree. That's fine. For me personally, it had a great amount of weight. It was extremely symbolic, and it tied perfectly to the progression of this series as a whole. So this, for me, is a very crucial scene throughout the entire VZ-Road. Despite it not being something that's, mind-blowingly shocking or crazy, it doesn't always have to be that. You need to take these moments to bask in the reprieve and the happiness that we received in it. So I really love that scene. I think it was beautiful as far as the execution and everything like that. And going back to it and thinking about this idea of happiness, where she says to herself, still not feeling as though she deserves any of this. And that's what I really want her to understand, is that she truly does. But she says, is it okay for someone like me to be given happiness all the time? To be so overjoyed? I actually feel like it's indulgent. And Suru says, no. And that, first of all, that showcases again, not only does she have this outlook of herself as being inadequate, but she's also so selfless as to always be concerned and considerate about what her happiness means versus everybody else's. But Subaru says to her, you can have as much, you can't have too much happiness. Go ahead and be indulgent. If it overflows, you can always share it, dude. Just so much incredible dialogue with this scene. It's crazy. And then, of course, that last line where he's like, you can take your time and slowly, steadily fall in love with me. I'll do my best so I can walk by your side, so you'll fall head over heels for me. And she says this, thank you, Subaru, for saving me. And his reaction in that scene, I definitely had parallels to episode 3 as far as that first time she smiled at him and thanked him for subverting the thing with Elsa, and to see that shock and that reaction in his face, that last moment, just a beautiful way to end the episode. I mean, I was sitting there waiting for a post-credit scene that never came, but even still, it was impactful. So now that I've talked about, you know, this final scene enough and you know, dove into this dialogue, I still have even more thoughts about it, and there's also a lot of things I'm going to mention going forward with this review now that I do have even deeper thoughts about, but there's things that I'm just going to table for a little bit and save them for particular videos, but I'll talk about that when I get there. So let's just go back to the beginning of the episode and work our way back through it to the final scene. I already mentioned how much I love that line from Willem, where he's basically like, "You truly are master and servant. Your eyes look just like his." It was a beautiful line. It also speaks to this man has had some of the greatest lines within the entirety of this arc, and I love it every time. But regardless, a couple things that I wanted to mention going back to the Subaru and Emilia thing before I forget about it, and we just delved into everything else with Betelgeuse, Auto, and the like. First of all, I talked about the Styx Helix drop, but the Stay Alive drop after he, you know, took out the shards from the carriage and runs off on Patrarch to eliminate the explosion from that moment. And he says, "I love you" to Emilia, as she's like, "Why? Why are you doing this?" And it drops Stay Alive. It was absolutely beautiful. So I wanted to mention that as well before I forget about it. And Puck's dialogue as well throughout the episode was amazing. We get a little tidbit from here that I'm going to save and table for the Seirei video, talking about, you know, taking physical form without reason drains mana, but that's just something that bolsters a couple thoughts that I have in general about the Seirei, and that's something I want to table for that. And of course his lines about, you know, "Are you thinking about Subaru?" and his commentary on their reunion was amazing to me as well. But now that I've said that, let's get back into the beginning of it, picking up where we left off from last episode. The Yuri Suba greatness, dude. I'm sorry. I mean, there's three things. There's three pairings right now, because the third has just reared its head in this episode, that are outside of the Subaru X Heroine pairings. Okay, there's three pairings with, you know, three yaoi pairings with Subaru that I genuinely fucks with heavy. You know me, if a yaoi pairing is good and I want to see fan art for it, and I want to see people talk about it, I'll be honest about it, dude. First of all, Yuri Suba is amazing. It's an incredible bromance. You know, the rivalry between them, the mutual respect that's developed, and yet their banter still being coded in their initial distaste for each other is amazing to me. And of course, Suba and Feris. Feris, one of the greatest traps of all time, a character I truly loved. And I'll be talking more about it when I get into, in case people are wondering, and this I was going to save for the end of the video, but I will be making videos talking about the EX novels, but that's neither here nor there. But Yuli's going in was amazing. I'm still blown away with using Nect in that manner and how it worked. You know, I love the execution of that scene, and the battle animation for the most part was clean and beautiful. And you see Julius's abilities, him using Al Claseria, which completely and utterly destroys Betelgeuse, and I love the combination with Subaru using one of the fire explosive shards as well to blow away. I believe the ability that Betelgeuse used was called Uldana, which I didn't even know he had an Earth magic affinity in the first place, so that was interesting. But we get this confirmation that Julius can actually use, similar to Rosewall. I'm sure not of that caliber, as we've heard the exposition that Rosewall is the most vaunted, you know, one of the most vaunted magical users in this kingdom. But aside from that he can actually access all of the elements, not even just in regards to his Seirei, because that's what I thought it was, but he can actually manipulate all of them himself. When he says this line, "My blade with all 6 elements together." So it's not just limited to his spirit arts. It's you know, his thing that he can do as well. And then that line, "Scattered to the ends of the rainbow." Really, my love for this character has really transcended as it's developed more and more. Of course, Subaru is still going to be my overarching best boy, but I really love Yuli and Felis tremendously, so that was amazing. Felis in this episode as well, basically just telling us and informing us about the whole thing with Ketty, which I'm still wondering if you've seen the Betelgeuse video, kind of theory crafting about Betelgeuse's origins, and none of that has been disproved. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of lines that I'm going to get into soon that actually bolster that theory even more, but also some stuff that makes me want to make a second part to that video with more theories that I've come up with at this point. But anyway, Phil's talking about the Firestones and Ketty and everything like that. I love that way of inserting him into this episode, as well as healing everybody at the end. But the thing with Ketty and setting that up kind of makes me wonder again whether he had the spell implanted in the fingers, imbued in him from when we first saw him in episode 14. But I love Subaru's reaction where he's like, my poor man's tendencies to use anything at hand has backfired. That shit was amazing. And then who comes to the rescue but my boy Otto, man. If you hated on Otto before, I don't want to see you jumping back on the bandwagon now. Just like everyone who's been saying fuck Emilia / where's Rem this entire time without giving any credence to the emotions of these scenes, I don't want to see you jump back on the bandwagon now. I mean, I'm not going to fault you for loving Rem because Rem is tied for my best girl with Emilia, but still, you can't just disregard something and then try and jump back on it now. Otto was my boy, dude. And in this episode, he shined tremendously. First of all, that line, which this is the third yaoi ship I was talking about kind of developing right here, where he's like, I like a man who can decide quickly, Natsuki-san. I was like, Otto, what are you saying right now? But either way, Otto was another one of the MVPs of this episode. So Patriarch was the first one I've mentioned. Otto is the second. There is a third that I will mention in shortly. But Otto going in like a madman with the reckless driving with the carriage to catch up to the caravan. I'm just like, this man is a fucking savage, dude. And we find out about one of his blessings, which is actually an incredible ability. It's very reminiscent of Ram's clairvoyance, where she can kind of see and perceive things through various living creatures. Otto has the blessing called Soul of Language, which allows him to hear the voices of all living creatures. Within what radius or distance, I'm not entirely sure, but for him to even say something like the trees have gone quiet makes me wonder if it extends not just from, wildlife and animals and things of that nature, but actually just anything that is alive he can communicate with. It's an incredible ability, and using that to catch up to the caravan as well was amazing. The going in, dude, just riding the caravan in there, and you could tell he was getting off on it a little bit. He's like, what is this amazing wind that I feel hitting me? I didn't even know I was capable of something like this. I'm like, Otto is amazing. And then, of course, the comedy when Betelgeuse was chasing them, and he's like, Natsuki Subaru's like, I'm not letting you get past me or to the individual who's driving behind me. He says this to Betelgeuse. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And Otto's reaction is like, Natsuki-san, you really care about me that much? And Subaru's like, shut up. I was trying to make myself sound cool, dude. The banter, the way that comedy was thrown into such a tense moment. And again, it speaks to the execution throughout ReZero and what makes this anime one of my favorites of all time. Is that tone shift is just so seamless and so well executed. But with that said, the last thing I want to talk about with this episode is ending things with that brief glimpse of Satla and Betelgeuse and his dialogue and his ending with this episode. So, getting into it, Betelgeuse's lines. Betelgeuse is a god tier feed, man. I'm sorry. He's like, you cannot use such means, such tricks to make light of me and my devotion. And even still, he gets exposed by the Yuli Subakami and the use of Nect in order for Julius to see the unseen hands. As long as that authority is subverted, I'm surprised that there was nothing left up his sleeve in terms of his authority. But there's something I want to talk about in regard to the gospel as well and how this thing ends as far as the confrontation with Betelgeuse. But even still, he's like, I thought I was loved. I am loved by the witch. And you see more fervently than ever, because it's always been kind of positioned as him, believing in this warped love. Yes, it was by extension by the witch, but this is the most he's ever really called out directly to Satla, period. And that was something that struck me incredibly. And he says this initially before he's first killed, is seemingly killed before he returns as this kind of crazy spider-like unseen hands, broken being, which ridiculous in himself. But he's like, after all I've done for you, speaking to the witch after he tries to take over Subaru's body once more. My theories about Betelgeuse being a spirit and everything like that are 100%. I still think, are very, very likely. Very, very, very likely, especially after this episode. And I still 100% believe in them. But regardless, he goes in there. And like I said earlier, he sees Satla. His reaction to which was absolutely priceless. The man was completely and utterly overjoyed. And Satla, who, same voice actress Emilia Ray Takahashi, which I think is a huge factor to consider, says this as she goes through him with the unseen hands. No, you are not the one. And then smacks him flying. And he, in that moment, leaves Subaru's body, which also speaks to some things as far as Sattler, which I will be making the Sattler theory video, the Seirei as well. And especially if Betelgeuse is in fact a spirit, which I 100% believe, it'll speak to that as well as far as these different realms and tomes work. But I'm going to table all of that, like I said, for these specific videos. I don't want to spoil any of that here. I think it'll be good to have people look forward to that rather than telling them what my thoughts are on it now. So that was very important and something I found very interesting. But then getting into his return, where he comes back and he's raving about Sattler giving him his love. And he says this word where he's like, my flesh body. Okay, talking about the state that it's in right now. And I think that, again, is a huge piece of evidence to go back to my Betelgeuse theory and bolster it even more in terms of him being a Seirei. But if you haven't seen that video, definitely go check it out. It's in the ReZero playlist. I highly recommend it, as well as all the other theory videos I've done, Emilia's Secret being one that's important to this as well. But regardless, then he goes on to say, I haven't forgot a single moment of things you did for me, even if you've forgotten. And I think this could potentially go back and tie into my Emilia's Secret video, as well as suggest that actual link and past between Betelgeuse and Sattler, or at the very least, him being a far older being, to the point where he must have been transferring from body to body as a Seirei in order to have more of a personal rapport, especially since as soon as he sees that presence, he's well aware of the situation. But there could be various explanations of that, but it suggests that something even deeper transpired with Betelgeuse in the past, and this is exactly why I want to make another video theory crafting about Betelgeuse once I get all my thoughts together and everything like that. So I found that really interesting. Subaru's reaction, where he's just like, what about you now? Is slothful, you useless hard worker. The dialogue was absolutely hilarious. He breaks it down and he's like, yo, she doesn't love you or me. In what kind of rom-com does someone try to squash their love's heart? Dude, that shit was hilarious. That shit had me dying. And then he goes on to say the thing about I am your opponent and the whole little banter with Otto, which was hilarious. But then, first of all, the third MVP of the episode, Io, once again. I fucking love this Seirei, man. Io is amazing. Comes out with the Rental Goa, which is basically a flame spirit gun, after he throws the pot of oil on Betelgeuse's face, sets him ablaze, and I'm just like, yo, I called that sequence of events as soon as it was happening. I was like, yo, let's go. But then he baits him with the gospel, and that's something that I really found interesting, because Betelgeuse keeps screaming, relinquish it, give it back to me. And you could make the argument that he might be talking about Subaru's body and how perfect it was for him, but I think the way it was constructed, he was referring to the gospel. So I found that very interesting, and the fact that Subaru, after he took it during the initial encounter once again and looks through it, sees the unwritten pages, and then writes in it, oh, Arida, this is the end, seemingly bringing an end to Betelgeuse's story as well. You see, as he tosses it behind him, Betelgeuse goes to catch it. There's this slight disintegration of the unseen hands, and Betelgeuse is pretty much no more and destroyed at that moment. Although I'm wondering if he could still somehow use his ability, as I say, to move from to another body. But again, that would require the conditions being fulfilled. That would require potentially the same spell using the fingers to be implanted already, or somebody with an affinity similar to Subaru. So I'm not sure how that would work. I generally think this is the end of Betelgeuse, but very well could still somehow subvert this. But I think using that and writing that into the gospel, I wonder if that had a direct effect because of what was written in there, like seemingly bringing an end to Betelgeuse's story. Was Subaru, as having given the witch's love and her blessing and everything, does he have the authority to make additions to the gospel and flesh things out such that it revokes potentially Betelgeuse's authority or something of that nature? And then it goes back to who penned the gospel in and of itself, and how the breakdown of the witches' cult is actually structured. Because I think outside of the remaining archbishops, I definitely think there has to be an individual, because Sattler doesn't seemingly have a direct connection to this. I do not think Sattler penned the gospel, so there has to be some other individual that has agency over the cult and who has distributed these things in the first place, unless it's just one of the other archbishops. But that's what I generally believe, or another one of the witches could be a possibility as well. But regardless, that's pretty much it, man. There's so much more that I want to talk about, even in just this episode, but there's a lot of elements of it that I want to save for particular videos, and that transitions into what I want to talk about as far as future plans with ReZero. But all I have to say is that this has been an incredible ride. I've loved every moment of it. It's hands down my anime of the year. I don't think anything is surpassing it. It's just not possible. Subaru is my best boy of the year, and this is a series that will always have a special place in my heart. So thank you once again to Nagatsuki-sensei, to White Fox, all the cast, all the staff, Kanagawa, Media Factory, just everyone that put effort into this series in some way or another, and for, again, to Tappei for crafting such a marvelous work. Thank you, because it truly has meant a great deal for me. And season 2, please. Season 2, I will fool Doug as a beg for season 2 if I have to. Please, just please. I don't care how long it takes. I know Peacemaker is in the works. I know, SG0 needs to be a thing for, and I don't want to delay SG0 anymore, dude. I need my Steins Gate greatness, but please, sometime in the future, I need this season 2. So now, speaking to the plans for the future of ReZero on the channel, I said it a bit during the live reaction. I want to reiterate it here in case people didn't see that, but don't think that because the season is over, ReZero content will be stopping. So keep an eye on the ReZero playlist and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because there's actually going to be probably even more content for ReZero than there was prior. I still have a great deal. I'd say, I can tell you right now, over 8 videos planned for ReZero. And that number might increase as I think of more things, but right now I have over 8 side videos planned for ReZero, special topic videos, theory videos, discussions, some fun videos in there, and some reviews for particular side content that'll be coming on a weekly basis. So this upcoming week, next Sunday and potentially Saturday, I'll release 2 videos, one on each of those days, to kind of fill the emptiness of not having ReZero on that Sunday as well. And they're going to be very in-depth and interesting videos, so I hope you guys look forward to those. I have gotten some requests, and I actually really think it'll be fun to do this, to live react to both ReZero Petite and ReZero Break Time. So I'm going to be doing that. I haven't figured out the schedule as to when I'm going to be doing that, but just keep an eye out. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't, and you'll see when that's going to be arising. It'll also be updated in the playlist, but I'm going to go through, because I haven't watched any of those, dude. I've seen bits and pieces here and there for people who have sent stuff to me, but I haven't watched any of those. Similar with the episode previews, I kind of want to go back and watch those too, but I'm going to be reacting to those, so there's going to be a lot of content as far as ReZero still maintaining itself on the channel. I want to get through all of my theory videos first and my discussions and stuff like that before I consider my next move with the series, because like I said from the beginning, once this ends, if there's no season 2 announcement, I'm probably going to try and delve into the web novels and find out what goes down next. And I'm going to hold off on that till I finish all of the side videos I have planned, because I don't want to spoil my anime only perspective and kind of taint the videos that I want to make. So I'm going to be making these. Please do not spoil me on anything, because I'm not going to be knowing anything past the anime for quite some time. Once the time comes for me to begin my foray into this material, I will update everybody. That'll be after I've finished the side and theory videos that I have planned already. The Satsula one, I have some character analyses that I want to do. I have so many, different theory videos and discussion videos that I want to do that it's actually crazy right now. Plus reviews. I'm going to be talking about the EX novels, if everything. So a lot of ReZero content still coming. And of course, when Death or Kiss comes out in March, the LP will be happening as well. So ReZero is not going to die on the channel anytime soon. I'll tell you that much. So I hope you guys stick around for it. But with that said, I know this was a very long-winded review, probably the longest review I've done, period. So let me know your thoughts on this episode. I'm going to try and cut this down as best I can. But to everyone that's been so supportive of the ReZero content, thank you. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more ReZero content. And just check out, if you've come to the channel for this, definitely check out other stuff that I have in the works. I do seasonal stuff every season in terms of anime and manga, and there's a lot happening in fall, dude. It's gonna be a really awesome season. So with that said, let me know your thoughts, and I'm out. Peace.